Welcome back, Gems, to another wonderful episode of the Grateful Gem podcast. I am your host, Jasmine Shannelle, and I can't wait for you to hear today's topic. Gems are definitely going to be dropped, so make sure you tune in and stick around. Let's get into it. What's going on, Gems? So glad you have tuned in to another part of our what was a previous three-part series. I kind of have a surprise for you guys today, but um, I want to see. What I did was I decided to add another part to the three-part series. So today I just want to go over another door that we sometimes overlook when we're in certain situations, when we are faced with so many things, and that door is the door of opposition. So I think that this is also a crucial part of going through the doors of delay, going through the doors of expectation, and then experiencing some opposition, right? Because we know that sometimes God tells us that He's going to do a lot of things, and we believe Him, right? Because we know God is not a liar. We know that He would not lie to us. He's the same, and His word is trustworthy. So, what happens when you're faced with opposition? When the door that you open is the very door that you're supposed to open, but everything behind that door has so much turmoil, has so much disappointment, has so much heartbreak, has so much confusion around it. And I think that, I don't know about you, but for me, this is definitely, or I can say this isn't kind of, I'm kind of still at this door. I'm still at the door of opposition for a moment, but I think I'm slowly closing that door, if I'm being honest, because I feel like I've been at the door of opposition for the last, I would say June, July, August, September, October. So the last 4 or 5 months, because we're in November, right? And can you guys believe that Thanksgiving is this week? Can you believe that we are a few weeks away from Christmas and then a few more weeks away from a new year? Like, look at the time. Like, time really waits for no one. But um, I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving, because I won't talk to you guys until next Sunday. But I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoy time with your family. But again, like I said, going from the door of opposition, I feel like I've been there for the last 4 or 5 months. I feel like, I was at the right place, but it just wasn't like what God had for me was at that place, but it wasn't that specific option. Or, God is showing me this is what you need to do, but I was overlooking it, or I was looking elsewhere, putting stipulations, going back to expectations, putting my expectations on what God had for me. Yes, God had those things for me, but I kind of scaled back because I was like, okay, I need this to line up with this. And so the things that I got in return were not the things that I was like, oh, this is not what I asked for. But once I got them, I was like, you know what, Lord, I have to trust you. I have to just set aside my fears, my doubts, my worries, and know that you are a provider. You will provide. You've gotten me these things. I prayed about it. You showed me that this was it. And I just have to trust you. And to be honest, that can sometimes be very hard. Sometimes when you're walking down a path and the path feels unknown, I know for me, because I like control in my life. And I feel like God, for the last year or so, God has just been telling me to let go of having so much order and control over my life, to just submit my life to Him completely and not say, okay, boom, plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, because that's how I am. I'm a big planner. And so I feel like God was telling me, stop with all the mastermind plans and just submit your life to me and submit to my plans, because my plans are to exceed you and to prosper you and not to harm you. And so sometimes we think that we know what's best, or we know how God's going to do it, but to be honest, we don't. And so I got to asking myself the question the other day, because sometimes I get in the car and I will go to the farthest Walmart. There's like a Walmart like 2 minutes up the street. I would go 15 minutes down the road to a Walmart just so I could spend time alone with God, just talk to Him, and just clear my head. And so the other day I was riding down the road, and the question came to me like, God, what am I supposed to be doing in this season where I feel like opposition is coming from every which way? Opposition is finding me in relationships. Opposition is finding me when it comes to the things that I know that you said will come to pass. Opposition is coming to me when it comes to my doubt, my fear, and my thoughts. How do I get rid of that? Or not get rid of it, because you can't really get rid of opposition, but how do I correctly deal with opposition? What do I supposed to do? And so I heard a moment where God was just like, trust me. And I was just like, God, okay. If I'm being real, I was just like, okay. I'm like, I feel like this whole time, I remember I was saying a few episodes back that God was working on me with patience. And I thought that season had closed for me. I thought that door had closed. But in all reality, if I look back, I'm still going through that. I'm still going through patience, because not to just keep going back to the same things, but because these are so relevant with my whole car situation. Here I was at the dealership, the car that I very wanted. I know God told me that this is my car, but I walked away with it, and I just had to say, God, okay, I trust you. I'm confused because I know that you said this is the car. I'm going to get a new car because I can't keep my old car. So I'm not understanding why I'm at this dealership. I see the car, but I can't ride away with it. Like, I'm not understanding. And so it came where I had to wait a month and a half to get my current car, which was the same car, better price, honestly less mileage, because I think the first car I looked at had like 22,000 miles, and it was a 2019 or 2020. And to me, that is a lot of miles, because you're only supposed to drive like 7,000 miles per year. So I'm like, that's a lot of miles, 22,000. And I was just like, this is my car. I don't care. Like, I want it. That's fine. I don't drive a lot. And God was like, nope. Like, I told you you're going to get this car, but it's not this specific car. You're not even at the right location. And that came back too with expectation, because here I was holding on to a blessing that I got a while ago, thinking that God was going to do it the same. And God reminded me that I'm not going to do it the same. I'm going to bless you because I already told you that. But it's not going to be the way you feel it's going to be. And so I had to literally walk away, and I was literally torn to pieces. And I had to ask myself, well, God, why does this keep happening? Like, why do I feel like I hear you, but then I don't hear you? Why do I feel like you're telling me that this is going to happen, but it's not happening? Like, I literally was at the dealership with the very car that has everything that I asked for and more. And so, like I said, going forward, I had to wait a month and a half. I had to be in a situation where I was uncomfortable, just not having my own car, and I felt so helpless. I'm like, God, you cannot do this to me. Like, you cannot literally strip me of my confidence and feeling comfortable in having my own. And even with my apartment situation, that's how I felt. I'm like, for the longest I waited because I thought that God would just provide me with another apartment at my current apartment, but God didn't do that. So I waited till the last minute, and I decided just to move, put my things in storage. And then again, I had to be put in another uncomfortable situation, because I was like, I don't want to stay with nobody else. And it's different now because I have at the time, a 6-month-old baby, 7-month-old baby. 5 or 6 months. So I'm just like, he gets rowdy sometimes. He talks all day, so that can be kind of bothersome, when you want to just have a peace of mind. Because sometimes I'm just like yesterday, I was in a car ride, and I'm like, son, please be quiet. Like, you just talking. When I'm trying to talk to the Lord, I can't even hear myself think. But, he's a baby, right? So I was just like, Noah, stop. But sometimes he just whines. Like yesterday, the whole car ride, you guys, literally. And I don't know if that was just the devil using him. Let me go there. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't know if that was just something to distract me, because I literally was just trying to talk to God. And then the whole car ride, we was in the car for like 30 minutes to an hour, because I went to 2 different stores. They were like 15 minutes away from each other. But the whole time he was just like literally. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, every time I would try to get my train of thought together or just talk to the Lord about how I felt, I would lose train of thought because I was distracted. And so I was just like, I don't want nobody else to have to deal with this because he's a baby, and sometimes, it frustrates me if I'm being honest. And I'm his mom, but just that whole situation. But God put me back in a situation where I was uncomfortable, so and I had to wait. So it's been I moved August 1st I moved out. So August, September, October, November. So that's 3 months. So I had to wait a month and a half to get my car, even though I was literally in front of the car. Then I had to wait 3 months because I found a place now, but 3 months to get my own place. And it's crazy because a month ago I found um, an apartment that had immediate move-in availability, was definitely in my price range, and for some reason it was just weird because I don't know if I told you guys the story, but because I went there, I called on my lunch break. I went there, saw it, applied for it, got approved. It was for immediate moving. I would be moving that weekend. This was like a Wednesday or whatever, or Tuesday, and I would be moving that Friday. And I went, did the application, got approved, but I got a call saying that somebody else had leased it already. And I was just like, what? Like, God, what? Like, literally, door of opposition. God's like, this is what I wanted you to do, but this is not, you're not at the right spot. This is not where I want you to be. And so I was just like, I don't get it. Like, this is definitely in my price range, what I want to spend. This is in an area where I'm familiar with, so it's fine. It's got everything that I'm asking for, pretty much that I can think of. So why can I have this? Like, literally, and I kept holding on to the fact, okay, they're gonna call me, and they did call me, but she kept calling me to like get my hopes up. Like, have you ever been in a situation where you're like, okay, I know God gonna do it, then you get that call, and you're like, oh, see, I knew, I believed, I held on to my faith. And let me tell you, I answered that phone. She was like, oh, we may have some good news for you. In an hour. An hour came, and she's like, oh, sorry, we don't. And I was like, okay, now you're playing with my emotions, God. Like, why would you do this to me? Like, why? Why? Here it's the car situation all over again. Like, this is what you're telling me to do. I did it, and I can't even get it. Like, it's so close. Like, literally, it is so close, and I can't even grab it. And so she was like, oh, well, if somebody doesn't move in on the weekend, we'll call you Monday. So that Monday, I ended up finding my current apartment that I'm moving into. And so I didn't worry about it because at the end of the day, I found another apartment. And in my mind, I was kind of stressed because I'm like, okay, God, this is not what I was looking for. This is not what I asked for. But for some reason, you sent me this. You got it for me. And I just have to trust you. And so the lady, she ended up calling me, but I didn't answer the phone because I'm like, what are you calling me to tell me that you didn't have anybody move in? And then I looked on the website, they didn't have any apartments. So I'm like, why are you calling me? To get my hopes up again? At this point, I already spent my money in this place. And even with I had another apartment that I applied to. I loved it. And for some reason, I didn't get approved for it. And I was just like, what in the world? Like, what happened? And I couldn't even figure out. The lady couldn't even tell me, like, oh, what was it? So I'm just like, that was confusing. But again, door of opposition. Like, God, I know this is what you're telling me to do. I'm doing my best in looking. I could have swore I found something, but yeah, here I am in a situation where I feel like, okay, this is confusing. I'm kind of getting frustrated. And so the whole time I'm doubting, I'm worrying, I'm stressing, I'm overwhelmed, not frustrated, I already said that, but I'm freaking out. I was gonna say freaking out, like freaking and frustrated. I don't know where I keep mixing up these words. I kept saying delayo. What is a delayo? Like, is that even a word? I kept saying that, but um, I was frustrated and I was freaking out because I'm like, okay, God, I'm ready to go. I need my own place, and I felt like it wasn't happening. But it was confusing because I'm like, God, I know that this is what you're telling me to do, so why hasn't this happened? And so I think that learning how to navigate in your opposition correctly is very important, because if you don't correctly navigate when you're being opposed by what God has shown you, you can literally delay your blessing, or you can get yourself in something that God never intended for you. With me, I feel like I wasted application fees at these two other apartments because I didn't confirm that this is what God has for me. I put my expectations on them, and that's not what God asked me to do, right? So sometimes, being at the wrong place at the wrong time, you could potentially, settle for something that is way less than what God has for you. And that's what I had to learn. Like I said, I lost money in doing those applications. And with the car thing, I end up getting hit with my credit, because inquiry or whatever. And so those are things that I could have avoided had I just not been so desperate in the moment. I feel like, especially with the car thing, I felt like I was just settling because at that point, I was just like, Jasmine, just let's go. Like, let's go. The damage is already done. Let's just leave the apartments. I'm just like, it's kind of frustrating. I'm gonna spend my money and y'all don't got nothing or, whatever. So I think that in expecting from God, sometimes we expect, but when we're faced with what we feel like is what God has for us, we kind of settle. And that's what I did. And it hindered me because at that moment, it's just like, oh, cool, this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But all in all, I ended up harming myself, losing money, taking hits to my credit when I could have just waited, and spent the correct amount of money and only, did like one inquiry because I ended up getting pre-qualified for my car or whatever. So I think that in our position, we have to, one, be patient. Just be patient enough to get what God has for you and remember what God tells you. So if you're faced with an opposition or an opportunity that is less than what you are expecting from God, don't do it. Because you're going to end up later on saying, oh, I wish I would have waited, or I wish this would have never, came my way because I didn't really want this. This is not really what I asked for. And I don't want you guys to go through that, And sometimes we will have that kind of opposition. But for the most part, it's just like, if we can wait, that's the best option because we know that what God has for us is far better than what we can offer ourselves. So that's the first thing I would say. The first thing is just be patient. Two, when you're faced with opposition, I would just take a minute to ask God, okay, God, what is this? I remember something happened the other day and I was so upset and I wanted to call everybody and nobody would answer the phone. And so in that moment, I had to calm down and just say, okay, God, what is this? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't get why I keep revisiting the same issue over and over. It doesn't feel good. I'm not in the mood. Like, and once I actually talked to God and calmed down, one of my friends called me back and I was just like, in that moment, I said, thank you, God, for allowing me to gather my thoughts and get myself together. Because I just imagine how that call would have went had I called the wrong person that couldn't push me into purpose in that moment. Someone that could have egged me on, or someone that could have helped me doubt or helped me be fearful in what it is that I was going through. And so I thank God that when I was reaching out to people that nobody answered, but after I ended up, calming down, that God was able to, just have my friend call me back and we could just have a different conversation. And, I ended up telling her about it or whatever. And she was just like, very, positive about it and just telling me, just trust God and don't worry about it and, just move forward with just God on your side. And so that's why I always speak on friends that can push you into purpose is very important. So I think that that's very important. Just being able to ask God, seek God before you seek other people, because sometimes if you say too much to the wrong person, it can be very detrimental to your situation and it can prolong your opposition because you've reacted in a bad way, or you did something out of reacting and how you felt. And so now it's like, okay, well, I could have been only waiting for a month. Now I gotta wait 3 months because I done did this, and that. So I definitely said the first thing is just being patient. The second thing is seeking God. And then the third thing is just trusting God through everything that you're going through what you're feeling, through how you're feeling, and being able to reach out to people that can help you get your mind in a positive state. Like I said, there's been so many things these last couple of months, this whole year, honestly, that have just, knocked your girl down. But I was able to get back up and be encouraged, because sometimes when we fall, we come up with scars, right? Or we come back up with things that we feel are permanent. But as I'm going through this situation, I feel like some things are permanent, can be permanent, and some things can be just a temporary mark. And I think we have to decipher which ones we're going to allow ourselves to go through, right? Because, sometimes every scar can't be removed, but we can heal through it. We can definitely work on getting it removed, and not letting it scar us for life, or still having a mark, but having a remembrance to say, I remember how this happened. I have a mark on my hand where I got burnt with an iron when I was younger because my mom was ironing our clothes, getting us ready for school, and I went and touched the ironing board, and the iron fell on my hand, and I had this big old ugly bowl filled up with pus and all that, and I literally still have the mark on my right hand. And every time I look down at it, I think, had I not been so curious or just whatever I was, had I not done that, I would not have this mark. But going forward, I look at this mark and I think, this is still relevant to my life because sometimes I do that. You know, I get curious and I walk into things that leave me scarred when I didn't have to go through that had I just trusted God. Had I just not tried to take matters into my own hand, you know, I wouldn't have had been scarred. I also remember on the same hand, we had a kerosene heater. Now that's telling my age, okay? But if you know what a kerosene heater is, we had a kerosene heater and it was really cold, and I ended up placing my hand on top of the kerosene heater. My whole hand was swollen for like a week. And it sucked because that same day we were going to Chuck E. Cheese with a family member, and I couldn't play because my whole hand was like literally swollen. I had to have my hand in like a bag of ice all day. And the crazy thing is, again, I remembered it. Like, I don't have any scars that I can see on my hand. But when I look down, sometimes I remember that. I'm just like, I remember going through that process. I remember crying for days because it still hurt. Even when it went down, it still hurted. Like, it really hurted me. And I remember now, like, I will never do that again, you know. But if I'm real, that's kind of like, it's still relevant to my life because that's sometimes what we do. We stick our hand in things and we come out burned, or we fall and we end up scarred. And sometimes with that, we attach disappointment, we attach frustration, we attach being tired and defeated. So when we get up, you know, we may be limping, or, you know, we may be just dragging our feet because we're defeated by the things that are coming against us, that of opposition. Like, we are really tired of the things that we're going through. And so just enough about me and my journey. I want to take it biblical because, like I said, these podcast episodes are not things that I've heard or seen. These are relevant to what I'm actually experiencing in life. So every episode is basically off something that I've learned by going through something that I failed at and still trying to succeed at, or something that I actually failed at and now I'm succeeding at. So these aren't things that I'm just like making up stories or trying to, you know, fluff a story up to make it sound good, because, you know, these are actual things that I'm going through. Like I said, I feel like I'm coming close to the door to closing the door of opposition, but I feel like opposition has been there for a while. And in the beginning, I can honestly say that I did not react accordingly. I did not act the way that I should have. Sometimes I got frustrated, I lashed out, and I took my frustration out on other people. Minor things kind of got me upset. I really stepped back out of the person that I have become today to the old person that I used to be, and that's not cool. So that's why I said, you know, at the end of the day, we all go through things. Are you loving this episode? Great. Don't forget to leave your feedback by rating and leaving a review on Apple iTunes. Also, don't forget to subscribe anywhere, wherever you're listening to this podcast. And make sure that you follow us on Instagram to keep up in the know of what's going on with the podcast. Okay, let's get back to the episode. But yeah, so you know, these are really situations that I look back on now, and I'm just like, wow, you know, the lessons in them are very detrimental, and the way we react to things that are sent to oppose us from what God has for us. Then we have to also question ourselves and say, okay, why is all this opposition coming my way? And I really believe that it's a breakthrough, you know, on the way. Like, when you get closer and closer, like when the devil knows, like, oh, you know, she winning, she about to literally come through this thing. Let me send this way. Let me send this person to call her. Let me send this bad letter. Let me see what I can do to get her shaken. And of course, we don't want the devil to win, right? Like, I know I don't. So it's like, in that moment, you have to just remind yourself, like, he will not have the last say so. Like, he will not win. Even though, you know, we feel defeated and we're tired, we have to trust God in everything that we do. And we have to just remember and say, okay, God, I trust you with this because I can't figure it out for myself. I don't know what's best for me. We can see down the street, but God sees around the corner, So we don't know what God is saving us from when opposition comes our way. Sometimes opposition isn't always negative. It isn't always sent from the devil. It's sent from God to protect us from something that could be potentially not better than what he's offering us. So the last thing I want to talk about is forget everything, like I said earlier, forget what I've gone through. Okay, so let's just get it out of our heads. Let's talk about Peter. Let's talk about when Peter was fishing in that boat. Because that's what I was going to originally talk about, and I kind of got off subject. But let's talk about Peter. So Peter, at this point, he's a fisherman. And, so he knows the ins and out of catching fish. He knows the ins and out of being successful at fishing. And so you have Jesus who's trying to show him a different way that goes outside of what Peter normally does when it comes to fishing, right? And so if you remember that at one point, Peter was just like, God was like, let me help you. Like Jesus was like, let me help you or whatever. And so he's like, basically, okay, if you say so. And so in that moment, I can really say that we can assume, or not really assume because it's there in the text, but we can gather from that Peter is frustrated, right? Like he's frustrated from not catching fish this particular day. He's tired from just feeling like, okay, well, I'm good at this, so why is it not working? Why haven't I caught these fish? I've been out here, I've done this. I'm a professional, fisherman. And so he's frustrated, he's tired, and he's also like us, he's defeated. And so in this moment, God is saying, or Jesus is saying, let me help you, let me take this and turn around for the good. And that's another thing that God also, he uses everything that we go through to get glory. And sometimes we don't see it that way. It's like, okay, God, like, I'm just literally at my peace end, and I'm just like, and then to just think about, like, I know you guys are like, girl, get it out. I'm literally just sitting here thinking, like, we are so similar to the people in the Bible. Like, we're just like Peter. Like, here we are doing something that we know how to do, something that we do every day. But sometimes when it doesn't go the way that we're used to it going, or when things don't happen the way that we expect them to happen, when we're defeated by opposition, when we're frustrated from the expectations, and when we're tired of the delays, we're just like Peter. Like we literally have the mindset that Peter had. Somebody that's ages ago, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody that's actually written in biblical times. And so to think about that, it's just crazy. Like I think it's just amazing because it lets us know. But it just reminds us that we are just like the people in the Bible. We are just like the people that are written. And I think those stories are there for a reason. It's to remind us that those people were human just like us. Yeah, they had Jesus physically there, and we don't have Jesus physically here, but we have him, spiritually. But even still, they had him physically there, and they still go through turmoil. They still go through delays. They still have higher expectations, or they still doubt. They still worry, And I think that's amazing. But yes, again, I think that is amazing. If we look at the word in Luke 5, it basically, just to sum up the scene here, we have Simon Peter and his partners pulling in from a days of not catching, or night because it's nighttime, but them not being able to catch fish. And the reason I said that we can assume, or not assume because it's there in the text, that Peter is frustrated, tired, and defeated is because if you look at Luke 5:2, the end of it says, but the fishermen had gone out of them and they were washing their nets. So that let us know that, they were disappointed. They're closing up for the day, even though they haven't successfully caught any fish, right? So, Jesus then gets into the boat and he asked them, to pull out from the land and to go into deeper waters in order to catch fish. And so we can also again see that he's still frustrated, tired, and defeated, because he then says, we toiled all night and took nothing. So we basically been here all night, but we still haven't caught anything. But at your word, I will let down the nets. So it's like, if you say so, Jesus, I tried it, but how you go through something and somebody tells you like, girl, just change your expectation, or dude, just look at it in a different light. You're like, all right, I tried that, but okay, I'll do it. And then once you actually do it, it makes you feel better and the situation gets better. So I feel like that's literally what we're witnessing here. And that's why I said to think that we're just like Peter is amazing, because it's like, God values us that much. And this shows us that he's not only going to help Peter, but he'll help us, And sometimes we can be in situations where we're frustrated, tired, and defeated, and then God shows up. Jesus shows up and we're like, all right, God, I know you said do this, but I'm going to do that. And so I can't speak for you, but I can speak for myself and say, this is where I've been with my car situation, with my apartment situation, with a lot of things. That's where I've been. Like, okay, God, I tried it. I know you said this, but I just can't. And so sometimes it's, again, I keep speaking on this, but friends that can push you into purpose, because sometimes you need somebody that can be a form of Jesus in a way, not Jesus, but just to come in and do what Jesus did for Peter and say, go deeper, or change the way you look, change your mindset, change the way you speak. And then once you do that, you're like, oh man, thank you. Like, I really appreciate that. But again, we can just see that he's frustrated. He's defeated. He's tired. Like, they've been out there all night, something that they do every night, because he's a fisherman, right? So he knows this. So he's like, God, all right, I get it. Like, you telling me to go do this, but I tried it, but I'm going to try it again. And I kind of feel like it's kind of sarcastic too, because it's like, I'm gonna show you, like, you know what I'm saying, like, you telling me this, acting like I don't know what I'm doing. I come out here every night and I always catch loads of fish, but tonight I just can't, and I'm done. I'm finna go. You see me washing my net, but then you gonna come up here talking about go deeper. I'm gonna show you. And so in the midst of I'm gonna show you, God, Jesus kind of showed him, you know what I'm saying, that listen, let me guide you, and to carry on. It just said, and when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. So that just means they had more than they could bear, right? That means they had more than they could carry. What happens when you're in a situation that you've been fighting forever, you've been trying to do these things and it's not working, but then somebody tells you, or Jesus comes up to you, the Holy Spirit lets you know, like, just try it again. Try it this time with me. Do it differently. Change your mindset. Pray before you look at it this way. Look at this. Make sure I'm there before you do it. And then once you do that, God gives you more than you can bear. For one, I can say that experience alone is just overwhelming, right? In my opinion. It's overwhelming. And you really don't know how to receive it. And so it's like, literally, it's a lot. And to just see here, and when they had done this, so when they obeyed God, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. So sometimes you gotta, again, focus it back. Because I know y'all probably like, girl, I'm so sick of hearing about friends that can push me into purpose. But listen, friends will get you where God needs you to go. The right friends. The friends that God has for you, they will get you. And sometimes they will help you carry. They'll reap the blessing of what God has given you just by being associated with you. Guilty by association, if you understand how that works. But sometimes the people around you will reap the blessings of what you have. So then here this man was, they get ready to load up, cleaning their nets, leaving out, and they listened to Jesus, frustrated, tired, and defeated, and they reaped more than they could bear. Like, that's amazing. They enclosed a large number of fish. The nets were breaking. So they signaled to other people to come and help. And they filled both the boats so that they began to sink. Like, that's amazing. Like, what do you do when God gives you that overflow? And then you have to have people, the people that helped you get that overflow, or the people that are around you help you carry it. And that's why it's so good to have friends and close family, because God did not equip us to walk this world alone. And so you want to be attached to the right people, because you don't want people around you that ain't helping you, ain't doing nothing, and they just reaping the benefits of your blessings, because that's just how it works, That's just like when we talked about in the last episode about how the man was paralyzed and his friends put him up on a ladder in Mark 2. And his friends' faith helped him get free of his sins. And his enemies helped him get healed. And I remember I mentioned that your friends can get you saved and your enemies can heal you. And that's what I meant by that. Your friends' faith can bless you. And your enemies, because they don't want to see you prosper and they don't think you deserve it, God will do it in spite of them. So I think that that's very important, right? Like, I really think the door opposition is one of probably the most important door of anything, because we expect delays, right? We expect to have our own expectation, but what we don't expect is that when what we're receiving or what we're expecting looks like God, we know it's God, but we're getting pushed from it, or things are coming to push us further and further away from what God said He has for us. So I think that having the right mindset in that moment, having the right people around you in that moment, being able to go through that season, because sometimes that's a long season, man. Like, I just think about myself. It's been a long season of opposition for me, and it had me questioning, like, God, okay, you showed me this. I didn't go see this out myself. I didn't draw this up myself. This is what you actually told me. So why is it not working out? And so I think that this is just a good story. Forget, like I said, what I'm going through or the examples that I told you. Let's just focus on what Peter did. He obeyed, even when he was tired, frustrated, defeated. And we can assume that this is all physically, mentally, emotionally, because it's like, okay, I do this for a living. I know what this is. And for me to come out here all night and not catch nothing, you gotta feel disappointment. You gotta feel like, oh my God. And then you got people with you. They probably feeling, bringing their energies, and everybody's just on the boat, just sad. And then you have a light through the darkness. And God says, Jesus says, go deeper. And sometimes that's not just physically, but mentally. Sometimes we have to go deeper. And I remember this past Sunday, the message was, it's deeper than that. And sometimes, the things that you're praying for, they don't look like what they're supposed to. But that's because of opposition. And so you have to realize how deep opposition goes. So being able to correctly react to opposition is very important. It goes deeper than just, okay, I'm going to wake up with a better attitude. It goes deeper than, okay, I'm going to just keep praying about it. But you got to keep praying. You got to be diligent. You have to trust God despite of what it looks like. You have to literally be the person that continues to stick to the plan that God has for you, even when things, people, situations, feelings don't go with you. You still have to have the mental capacity to say, okay, God, I woke up this morning and it don't look like what you showed me, but hey, I trust you. And sometimes, if we're being real, that's hard, but we know that in the end it's worth it, because God will always come through on what He says. He will always send us help, and we are not alone. And I think that we have to just consistently remind ourselves. And that's another thing that I learned to do when I pray, is just consistently remind myself of what God's word says, what He says about us, and what He's saying about my situation. And so I encourage you to also do that. But I'm excited. We have one more door left to speak on next Sunday. And I know this came out a day late and a dollar too short, but I feel like it's right on time. I pray that it's right on time for you, for the ones that were waiting to hear about the next topic. I really am so thankful. I hope this blesses you, and just keep holding on. Get through this opposition, because the next door, trust me, is worth it. But I'm so thankful again for you tuning into this episode. Um, Again, it's a day late, a dollar short, but it's right on time. And I hope it blessed you. Again, this was a door that was not originally planned to be spoke on, but I feel like it was very necessary in order to speak on the next door. So we will be back next Sunday to talk about the last door of this once was 3-part series. Now it's 4 because God loves y'all that much that He used me to tell y'all about the door of opposition, to tell y'all about the door of expectation and of delay. So I pray that this blesses you the way it blessed me, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much for pressing play. Keep shining as the gems you are because you are definitely valued. God sees you. He loves you. Take care. Bye.